The station called Virex Halo floated in quiet orbit around a pale blue star. It was one of the largest interspecies research stations ever built, designed to be neutral ground, where dozens of civilizations could meet without fear. Its halls were wide, its lights soft, and its rules strict. No weapons. No threats. No displays of dominance. For most species, those rules were easy to follow. For humans, they were still learning. Elias Monroe walked through the central cultural wing with measured steps, his hands folded behind his back the way he had learned to do during formal meetings. He was human, average in height, unremarkable by galactic standards, no sharp claws, no glowing skin, no towering frame, just a man in a plain uniform, carrying a data slate and a calm expression. Humans had only joined the galactic community 6 years ago. Compared to ancient spacefaring species, they were children. Curious, emotional, and often unaware of unspoken rules. That was why Elias was here. He was a linguistics and cultural exchange specialist, chosen not because he was brilliant, but because he listened more than he spoke. The cultural wing was busy today. Representatives from many species gathered in small groups, sharing art, sounds, and carefully edited pieces of history. Elias moved slowly, observing, noting gestures and reactions. He believed learning happened best when you paid attention to what was not said. That was when he saw her. She stood near a display of drifting light symbols, her posture straight and still. Her species was known as the Aelari. Tall, slender, with smooth skin that shifted in color like soft stone underwater. But it was her eyes that drew attention, even from across the room. They were deep and layered, like looking into overlapping mirrors. Faint light moved within them, slow and steady, not glowing but present, as if her eyes were windows into something vast and quiet. Most species avoided direct eye contact with the Aelari. Their eyes were considered unsettling. Some said dangerous. Others said sacred. Humans had been warned during orientation. Do not comment on Aelari eyes. Elias had attended that briefing. He simply did not think about it in that moment. Lyrian noticed him watching. Her gaze met his, and for a second Elias considered looking away. But he did not feel threatened. He felt calm, curious. She inclined her head slightly, a polite gesture. Elias returned it and stepped closer, stopping at a respectful distance. "Your display is beautiful," he said in basic trade language. "The movement feels peaceful." "Thank you," Lyrian replied. Her voice was soft, carefully controlled. "It represents memory without pain." Elias nodded, appreciating the concept. Silence followed, not awkward, just present. He found himself still looking at her eyes, not staring, just noticing. The way the light shifted reminded him of stars seen through water on Earth. Without planning to, he spoke. "Your eyes are remarkable," he said gently. "They're beautiful." The effect was immediate. The nearby conversations stopped. A few beings turned sharply. One of the station mediators stiffened. A low ripple of tension moved through the room like a sudden change in gravity. Elias felt it and frowned slightly, confused. He replayed his words in his mind, searching for an insult. He found none. Lyrian froze. Her breathing changed, barely noticeable but real. Her eyes widened, the internal light shifting faster. For a long moment, she said nothing. Elias felt a small knot of concern form in his chest. "I apologize," he said quickly. "If that was inappropriate." She raised one slender hand, stopping him. Her gaze searched his face, not with anger, but with intense focus, as if she were looking for something specific. "You spoke without intent," she said slowly, "without desire to claim or understand." "I just meant it as a compliment," Elias replied. "On my world, noticing something beautiful is a way of showing respect." The silence deepened. Several observers exchanged uneasy signals. One Aelari elder nearby turned away, as if refusing to witness what might come next. Lyrian took a small step closer. "Humans are taught to fear what they do not understand," she said. "Are they not?" Elias considered the question. Sometimes, he admitted. But we're also taught to be curious. And kind. We don't always succeed. Her expression shifted again. Something like wonder passed through her features. After a long pause, she spoke softly. So softly that only Elias could hear. Can I show you something? The words were simple, but they carried weight. The station's environmental systems flickered for a fraction of a second, lights dimming before returning to normal. Elias noticed it out of the corner of his eye but did not react. He looked at her, really looked, and saw uncertainty there. Yes, he said, if you want to. Gasps rippled through the chamber. A mediator stepped forward, alarm clear in their posture. Representative Lyrian, the mediator said carefully, this interaction may violate. I am aware, Lyrian replied calmly, not taking her eyes off Elias. Responsibility will be mine. She turned back to him. You may refuse, she added. There will be no offense. Elias felt the weight of unseen attention pressing down on him. This was no longer a casual exchange. But fear did not rise in him. Only the sense that something important was happening. I trust you, he said simply. That seemed to surprise her more than the compliment. She inclined her head again, deeper this time. Then follow me. She moved toward a side corridor marked with restricted access symbols. The door recognized her presence and slid open. As they passed through, Elias felt the atmosphere change. The sounds of the cultural wing faded, replaced by a low, steady hum. The door closed behind them. The chamber beyond was dim, lit by soft bands of light along the walls. At its center was a simple platform, empty and unadorned. This place is shielded, Lyrian said. Observation without interference. Elias nodded, his curiosity growing. What are you going to show me? She hesitated. What my eyes are meant for. She stepped onto the platform and gestured for him to join her. He did, stopping a few feet away, careful not to invade her space. On your world, she said. Sight is passive. You see what is reflected. For my people, sight is shared. The light in her eyes brightened slightly. Our eyes reveal, she continued. Truth, memory, emotion. We learned long ago that other species were not prepared for it. They saw too much, or too little. Many were harmed. Elias swallowed but did not step back. And humans? We do not know, she said honestly. No human has ever been allowed to see. Her eyes met his again. This time, the sensation was different. Not threatening. Not overwhelming. Just deep. Like standing at the edge of a vast ocean. If you wish me to stop, she said, say so. I will, Elias promised. She took a slow breath, then she let him see. The room seemed to fall away. Elias felt no pain, no fear. Instead, images rose gently into his awareness. Not pictures exactly, but impressions. Alari cities grown, rather than built, long ages of silence. The weight of memory carried across generations. He felt sorrow, but it did not crush him. He felt loss, but it did not break him. His mind adapted, finding balance where others might have shattered. Somewhere far away, alarms began to register impossible readings. Lyrian gasped softly, eyes widening further. You are still here, she whispered. Elias stood steady, breathing evenly. I'm okay, he said. You can keep going. If you want. And for the first time in centuries, an Aelari truly smiled. Far beyond the chamber walls, unseen eyes turned toward humanity with a mix of fear, awe, and dawning realization. Lyrian did not pull away at once. The shared perception continued, flowing gently instead of crashing. Elias felt as if he were standing in a wide river that knew his weight and adjusted itself around him. The memories did not demand his attention. They offered themselves, patient and quiet. She ended the connection slowly, like closing a door without noise. The chamber returned fully, the soft light steady again. Elias blinked once and let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Lyrian staggered back a half step, one hand pressing lightly against the platform. Her eyes dimmed, the inner light settling into slower movement. She stared at Elias as if he had changed shape. "That is not possible," she said. Elias frowned slightly. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," she replied quickly. "You did nothing wrong. That is what makes this impossible." She straightened, drawing herself back into composure. But the control she usually carried was cracked now, just enough for him to see the truth beneath. She was shaken. "When my people share sight," she said, "other minds react in one of three ways. They pull away in fear. They try to take control. Or they collapse under the weight of it." "And humans?" Elias asked. "You did none of those," Lyrian said. "You adapted." Elias considered that. It didn't feel like adapting. It felt like listening. Her breath caught softly at that word. Outside the chamber, the station was no longer calm. Sensor operators stared at their screens, watching readings spike and stabilize in patterns they had never seen. Neural resonance fields flared, and then settled into smooth, balanced waves. No alarms triggered, because nothing was technically wrong, but nothing about it made sense. In a nearby control room, a senior mediator stood rigid, hands clasped tightly behind their back. "Is the human still conscious?" they demanded. "Yes," an analyst replied. "Heart rate normal. Stress indicators minimal." "That's not possible," another voice said. "No non-Alari has ever." "Lower your voices," the mediator snapped. "And notify the council observers immediately." "Lower your voices. Lower your voices immediately." Back in the chamber, Lyrian moved closer again, slower this time, careful. She studied Elias with new eyes, not just seeing him, but perceiving the shape of his presence. "Humans are loud," she said quietly. "Emotionally. Your species burns bright and fast. We expected chaos." Elias smiled faintly. "We feel a lot. But we've had practice living with it." She tilted her head. "Practice? Our history isn't gentle," he said. "We've faced loss, fear, and change over and over. We don't always handle it well. But we keep going. We make room inside ourselves." The words settled between them. Lyrian looked away first. "If others learn of this," she said, "there will be consequences. For you, for me, for my people." Elias nodded. "I understand. You may be called before the council," she continued. "They will want explanations." "I can answer questions," Elias said. "I won't lie." "That may not be enough," she said softly. The door chimed. Lyrian stiffened. She raised a hand, and the chamber sealed fully, its shields thickening. A moment later, a voice came through the comm, filtered and formal. "Representative Lyrian, Human Specialist Elias Monroe. By order of Station Authority, you are requested to exit the chamber immediately." Lyrian closed her eyes for a brief moment. When she opened them, the inner light was steady again. Controlled. "It begins," she said. They exited together. The corridor outside was lined with observers, not guards, not openly, but representatives of many species, their attention fixed and intense. Elias felt the weight of it but kept his posture relaxed. He had learned that panic often invited fear in others. They were escorted to a transit chamber, and then to a secure council room. Smaller than the main hall, but dense with presence. Holographic forms flickered to life around the circular space as remote council members joined. An ancient voice spoke first. "Representative Lyrian, you are aware that what you have done violates established law." "Yes," Lyrian said calmly. "I accept responsibility." The voice shifted. "Human Elias Monroe, do you understand the risk you were exposed to?" Elias considered his answer. "I understand that it was unknown," he said. "I did not feel harmed." A low murmur rippled through the chamber. "You felt nothing?" another council member asked sharply. "I felt many things," Elias replied. "But none of them were harmful." Lyrian's gaze flicked toward him, gratitude clear. An observer from a war-scarred species leaned forward. "The Aolari perception has driven minds to ruin," Empires fell because of it. Why did the human endure? Elias did not rush his answer. I think, he said slowly, that humans don't try to control what we feel. We don't lock it away. We let it pass through us. It hurts sometimes, but it also heals. Silence followed. Then another voice, colder. Or perhaps humans are simply more dangerous than we realized. That landed heavily. Lyrian stepped forward. He is not dangerous, she said firmly. If anything, he is stable, anchored. The perception did not overwhelm him, and he did not seek to dominate it. The council debated in layered voices, some fearful, some curious. Elias listened, hands folded, breathing steady. He noticed that whenever voices rose too sharply, Lyrian's attention flicked back to him, as if checking that he was still all right. Finally, the oldest voice spoke again. This matter cannot be undone. The question before us is not punishment, but understanding. The lights dimmed slightly. Representative Lyrian, the voice continued. Are there others among your people who could share sight safely with a human? Are there other? Representative Lyrian. Lyrian hesitated. Possibly, but we would not risk it without consent. And you believe the human mind can serve as a stabilizing presence? Yes, she said without hesitation. All eyes turned to Elias. Human, the council voice said. Would you be willing to undergo further observation? Elias felt the room tighten around the question. This was no longer about curiosity. This was about the future. If it helps prevent harm, he said, then yes. Lyrian exhaled, a sound of relief she could not fully hide. The council did not decide immediately. Instead, they ordered containment protocols, not confinement, but supervision. Elias would remain on station. Lyrian would remain his point of contact. As they left the chamber together, the corridor felt longer than before. You did not have to agree, Lyrian said quietly. I know, Elias replied. But I meant what I said. If understanding helps keep the peace, it's worth trying. She studied him again, that same searching look from before. You are not afraid. I am, he admitted. But fear doesn't always mean stop. They walked in silence for a while. At a junction, Lyrian paused. There is something else, she said. When we shared sight, I felt something from you as well. Elias looked at her. What? Acceptance, she said. Not of me alone. Of difference. Of the unknown. She met his eyes fully again. That is rare. Elias smiled gently. On Earth, we say that understanding begins with listening. She nodded once. Then, perhaps, she said, the galaxy has something to learn from humans after all. Far above them, data continued to flow, analyzed and reanalyzed. Patterns emerged that no one could ignore anymore. Human minds did not resist the unknown. They made space for it. The days that followed were no longer quiet on Virex Halo. Elias felt it the moment he stepped into shared spaces. Conversations lowered when he passed. Some beings watched him with open curiosity, others with clear unease. He did not blame them. To the galaxy, he had become something new and undefined. He remained under observation, but not confinement. He was allowed to move freely, attend sessions, and continue his work. The difference was that now, there were always eyes on him. Human security officers rotated quietly nearby, while station mediators tracked his condition with constant care. Lyrian stayed close, officially as his cultural liaison, unofficially as something more complicated. She guided him through what to expect, explaining council customs and warning him when fear was turning into suspicion. The council does not fear strength, she told him during one of their walks through the quieter rings of the station. They fear what cannot be predicted. Elias nodded. I understand that feeling. They stopped near a transparent panel overlooking the star outside. Its light spilled across the floor in slow waves. There is talk, Lyrian continued, of testing the theory. Elias did not need to ask what theory. They want to see if it works again. Yes, she said. With purpose this time. The request came sooner than expected. Two species had been locked in a cold conflict for nearly 4 centuries. No open war, but constant tension. Borders bristled, fleets waited. Every negotiation collapsed into accusations and silence. The council feared that one more failure would push the balance into open destruction. Both species had agreed to mediation only because of desperation. And now the council wanted to introduce something radical. Elias sat in the preparation chamber, hands resting loosely on his knees. Across from him, Lyrian adjusted the perception stabilizers around the room. They were subtle devices, designed not to block her ability, but to keep it focused. "You can still refuse," she said quietly. "I know," Elias replied. "But, if this helps," she studied him. "This will be different. Their pain is old, deep. Shared perception will bring all of it forward." Elias took a slow breath. "Then we'll take it one step at a time." She nodded, something like admiration in her eyes. The mediation chamber was larger than most, designed to keep distance between hostile parties. Representatives from both species stood on opposite sides, their postures rigid, their expressions guarded. Council members observed from elevated platforms. The air felt heavy before anything even began. Lyrian stood beside Elias, her presence calm but alert. The council's oldest voice echoed through the chamber. "This session is an experiment," it said. "If instability occurs, it will end immediately." Elias stepped forward just enough to be seen clearly by both sides. "I am not here to judge," he said in clear, steady tones. "I am here to listen." One representative let out a sharp sound of disbelief. "Listening has failed us for centuries." Elias did not argue. "Then let us try something different." Lyrian moved to stand between the two groups, but not facing either fully. She turned slightly toward Elias, her eyes finding his. "Are you ready?" she asked. "Yes," he said. She began. The shared perception unfolded carefully, like opening a door only as wide as needed. Elias felt the shift immediately. The air seemed to thicken with memory. Pain surfaced first. Loss. Worlds scarred by misunderstanding. Promises broken not by malice, but by fear. The representatives stiffened as the truth moved through the chamber. Emotions laid bare without words. Elias felt it all, but he did not drown. He focused on breathing, on the simple reality of being present. He did not try to fix the pain or push it away. He acknowledged it, letting it pass through him like weather. Slowly, something changed. The emotional storm stabilized around him. Not erased, not softened, but held. The representatives began to react differently. Where there had been rage, there was now confusion. Where there had been denial, recognition. One of them staggered, clutching the edge of the platform. "That is not how it happened," they whispered. "Yes," the other replied, voice breaking. "It is." The perception ended gently. Silence filled the chamber. Then something unexpected happened. One representative stepped forward, slowly, cautiously. "We believed you chose to abandon us." The other shook their head. "We believed you chose to let us suffer." They looked at each other. Really looked. For the first time in generations. "We were wrong," one said. No cheers followed. No sudden peace declaration. But something far more important occurred. The weapons did not fire. The session ended under tight supervision. The council recessed immediately, voices urgent and layered. Observers whispered openly now, fear mixing with awe. Elias felt drained but steady. Lyrian steadied him with a light touch on his arm, careful and respectful. "You did it," she said softly. "We did it," he corrected. The news spread faster than anyone could control. Within days, requests flooded in, conflicts long thought unsolvable, diplomatic walls that had stood for ages, always the same question. Could a human stand with an Aelari and hold the truth without breaking? Not all reactions were hopeful. Some species protested fiercely. They claimed humans were being elevated too quickly, that this was a form of manipulation, that shared perception was dangerous and should remain buried. One faction went further. During a transit between chambers, an unauthorized signal spike surged through the station. Elias felt it before alarms sounded. A sudden pressure, sharp and invasive, brushed his awareness. Lyrian reacted instantly, throwing up a perceptual shield. Security flooded the corridor. Later, analysis revealed the truth. Someone had attempted to force a perception event, without consent, without stabilization. Elias sat in the medical bay afterward, unharmed but shaken. They tried to use you, Lyrian said, anger tight in her voice, to see if humans could be broken. They didn't understand, Elias replied quietly. Understand what? That this only works when there's trust. The council responded decisively. Unauthorized perception was declared a crime across all member systems. Humans were formally recognized as voluntary participants only, never tools. Elias was given a choice. He could return to Earth with honors and protection, or he could stay. He stood once more before the council, the weight of the galaxy pressing down. I will stay, he said simply. As long as I am welcome. The oldest voice paused. Why? Elias thought of Lyrian's eyes. Of pain shared and survived. Of enemies choosing not to strike. Because, he said, someone has to stand in the space between. Lyrian watched him with something deep and unguarded in her gaze. As the session ended, the realization spread quietly, but unmistakably. Humans were not conquerors. They were not saviors. They were anchors. And in a galaxy full of ancient wounds, that changed everything. Time changed its meaning on Virex's halo. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into cycles marked not by human calendars, but by successful mediations, quiet agreements, and moments where violence did not happen. Elias remained at the center of it, not because he demanded to be there, but because others asked him to stay. He never claimed authority. He never spoke above others. He simply listened. That, more than anything, unsettled the galaxy. Humanity's role became clearer with each passing session. Humans were not immune to pain or fear. They felt it deeply, but they did not collapse under it, nor did they try to dominate it. They carried it, made room for it, and allowed it to pass without becoming it. Other humans arrived in small numbers, carefully selected: psychologists, diplomats, artists, and listeners. Not soldiers, not rulers. People who knew how to sit with discomfort and remain kind. Lyrian helped train them. She stood before the first group of human volunteers, her posture calm, her eyes gentle rather than guarded. You are not here to fix the galaxy, she told them. You are here to witness it. They listened. Not every attempt succeeded. Some sessions ended early. Some species could not yet face the truth they carried. Elias made sure those moments were respected, not forced. This is not a weapon, he reminded the council again and again. It's a conversation. The council learned, slowly. Resistance did not vanish, but it softened. Fear turned into caution. Caution into curiosity. One cycle, a representative asked Elias a question that echoed through the chamber. Why humans? They asked. Why now? Elias thought before answering. Maybe because we are new, he said. We haven't had time to turn our pain into tradition. That answer was recorded and replayed across systems. Back on Earth, reactions were mixed. Pride, worry, disbelief. Humanity had not expected to become important in such a quiet way. There were debates, warnings. But there was also something else. Hope. Lyrian and Elias spent more time together, not always working. Sometimes they walked the observation rings, watching stars drift by. Sometimes they sat in silence, comfortable and unafraid. You changed us, Lyrian said once, not accusing, not praising, just stating. I think you were ready, Elias replied. She considered that. Perhaps, but readiness means nothing without someone willing to step forward. The moment that truly defined everything came without warning. A deep space signal arrived, old and fragmented. It came from beyond mapped territory. From a species long thought extinct. Their message was not words, but raw emotion, panic, grief, desperation bleeding through damaged communication channels. Traditional contact protocols failed instantly. The council hesitated. This kind of signal had triggered wars before. Unknown pain, unknown intent. They turned to Elias. "If we respond," a council member said, "and this overwhelms us." Elias nodded. "Then we respond carefully." Lyrian stood beside him. "We respond together." A long-range, shared perception was prepared, something never attempted before. It would be distant, unstable, and risky. The pain carried in the signal was ancient and deep. Elias closed his eyes as the connection formed. This time, the weight was immense. Whole worlds lost. Generations fleeing. A species reduced to echoes. Elias felt it all. His breath hitching. His hands trembling. But he did not let go. He remembered Earth, its scars, its wars, its long, slow healing. He opened himself, not to absorb the pain, but to acknowledge it. Lyrian anchored the perception, her control precise, her trust absolute. Across the void, something shifted. The signal steadied. For the first time in centuries, the lost species felt seen, not hunted, heard, not feared. They responded, not with weapons, with relief. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. In the aftermath, the Council made its final declaration. Humans were recognized not as a minor member species, but as a stabilizing presence within the galactic community. Not leaders, not enforcers, listeners, bridges. Elias declined every personal honor offered to him. Titles made him uncomfortable. He requested only one thing, that the work continue. Years later, when the story was told across systems, it did not begin with treaties or power shifts. It began with a moment in a cultural wing, a human noticing beauty without fear. Lyrian stood once more beside Elias, this time before a gathering that felt more like a family than a council. She looked at him, her eyes bright with layers of light. "Can I show you something?" she asked again, a smile in her voice. Elias smiled back. "Anytime." The galaxy no longer saw humanity as weak or naive. It saw them as something rarer, a species willing to feel, to listen, and to stay. And that made all the difference.